Allison, how did you find carnivore?
Well, to make a really long, kind of 15-year story short, my family was really into like natural foods when I was around like 10, 11. My younger brother had some like severe food allergy reactions. When we kind of chased the rabbit hole, we ended up kind of uncovering all the food industry stuff. So I've been sort of in like the health food space for a very long time. Like I learned about like the all broth GAPS diet when I was in high school, kind of a thing. But I never like I guess internalized like the all meat stuff. I guess, especially the GAPS diet. Like I kind of thought I needed it, but I wasn't that sick because I had problems, but they weren't bad. So, but like I was kind of peripherally aware of kind of alternative diets and like how the food industry is killing us and all that stuff. But I never really kind of applied it to myself until I started to get sick. And I did start to get sick. I started off with some mental health problems when I was in middle school. And then when I was about 15, I started having some joint pain. And I went to the doctor and had the scans and was diagnosed with tendonitis and sent to physical therapy. It didn't help me. And I just kind of continued to have like intermittent joint pain. And then when I got into college, or university, my diet kind of slid. So I'd been eating pretty well, or what I thought was pretty well, whole foods diet, local, organic. I made sure I ate meat and fruit and vegetables, and tried not to eat so many grains and refined stuff. But that didn't seem to save me. When I went to university, my diet like really kind of slipped, just because living on campus and you don't have a kitchen and it's just tough. I started to get really bad mentally, and then my physical health kind of followed. I gained a little bit of weight. I was very inflamed. I started having really bad sleep problems. I had really bad acne. My mental health got like very, very bad. I had to be hospitalized, full disclosure, a couple times. And it just sort of kept getting worse. And after I somehow got through university and was working in a job, I was working, late night shifts. So my sleep got really, really dysregulated, which made my health worse and worse. So I was having just chronic headaches. I had headaches for like 3 years straight, I think, at the time that I found carnivore. I think I was going on like 3 years of daily headaches. I was very fatigued all the time. I had a lot of joint pain. I was starting to show some symptoms of diabetes, like frequent urination. I was having blood sugar crashes. My fasted blood glucose was like 125. Just all kinds of stuff. Really bad anxiety, really bad depression. I was having panic attacks. I wasn't sleeping. Just a lot of really bad stuff. And then about just over 3 years ago, I just kind of hit a point. And I did mention this in the last time I was on with you. I had gotten a new job and sort of fixed my sleep and thought, oh, well, like I feel a lot better when I'm sleeping well. I should exercise. And I tried to join like a pickup soccer club. And like the first game that I played, I like fainted on the field, and that terrified me. So that was kind of my breaking point of like, I've not been taking this health food stuff seriously. And I'd cleaned up my diet a lot after I got out of university, had my own place where I could cook. But I was still eating like way more carbs than I should have been, and just not eating enough meat, I think. Just lots of things. But basically after that moment where I passed out, which has never happened to me, and I used to be a runner when I was in high school. I ran track, cross country, like a lot. I had never fainted exercising before, so that to me was like a sign that something was like super, super wrong that I really shouldn't be ignoring anymore. And I happened to be rewatching Jordan Peterson's Genesis lectures, and he mentioned his daughter Michaela's health scare, or well, her entire life of being really sick, and how she just started eating all meat and it fixed her for some reason. And that was it. Like I didn't do any research. I just thought, well, if it helped her and she had all these really terrible problems that are similar to mine, but really worse, honestly, okay, I'll try it. And I thought I'll do it for 30 days. I'll see what happens. I've been sick. At this point, I was 27 when this occurred. So I'd been mentally ill for, 15 years. I'd started having physical illness, 12 years prior. This was like over a decade of suffering. I thought 30 days, that will not kill me. I had a conversation with whatever and said, this is a sacrifice that I'm going to make and see where it takes me. And maybe it'll, be great, or maybe nothing will happen, but at least I tried. And yeah, after 30 days, I started to feel kind of good. And I thought, well, let me try 60 days. And then, after about 6 weeks or so, all of my mental health problems just vanished. So I just kept going. I thought the whole time that I was going to that I was going to reintroduce foods at some point. So I thought, oh, this is just an elimination diet. I'll do it for 30 days. I'll do it for 60 days. But eventually, I was collecting like cookies and stuff in my freezer that I was going to eat when I could eat foods again. And I never ate them. I've thrown them all away long ago. But yeah, so that's what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, mental
Mhm.
health, was that related to things like anxiety and depression?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My mom told me I started to show symptoms of social anxiety when I was around 5 or 6. We don't know why really. I didn't. I was not aware that I had anxiety. I had weird things like I couldn't make phone calls. I had like a really severe aversion to making phone calls from the time I was really small. Like even calling friends to ask if I could like come over their house, kind of a thing. I just wouldn't do it. And so then when I got a little bit older, like into 11, 12 years old, it started to become anhedonia, like just loss of interest in things. And then I was formally diagnosed with depression when I was 15 or 16, I think. And then when I was 18, I was further diagnosed with a major depressive disorder with recurrence, chronic depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and social phobia. Those were my diagnoses. Yeah, it was a lot. So
And at that age as well.
yeah, it got
It's
worse too. I think when I was diagnosed was actually probably one of the higher points in my mental health because it got much, much worse in my 20s. Um, so,
wow.
yeah.
Um, and so you've gone from that
Hmm.
to not having these problems anymore.
Yes.
And you've also recently been doing something that may have made you faint before.
Oh, it definitely would have made me faint before. Yeah, so like I said, when I started carnivore, I wasn't sure if anything was going to change. After a month and a half, I started to really get better with my mental health. After about 10 or 12 weeks, all of my joint pain really went away. And then I got really hungry and I was eating a lot. For about 4 months straight, I was eating like upwards of 4.5 pounds of beef every day. I was just insatiable. I couldn't stop eating. But after those 4 months were over, I felt really good in my body, like very, very, like I would wake up in the morning and just be awake, which had never happened to me like in my life. I remember remarking to one of my roommates when I was in college, she used to just get up and just like be up for the day. And I remember saying to her, I was like, you just get up, like you don't like have to roll around in bed for 30 minutes and like fall back asleep for like half an hour and then drag your sorry carcass into the shower, kind of a thing. She's like, no, I just get up. And I'd never experienced this in my life. And then after this 4 months of just like being a bottomless pit for me, I had that feeling. I woke up and I just woke up, and it's been like that for the last 3 years, and it's been amazing. But because I had all this energy suddenly, I felt like I couldn't sit still. Like I had to do something with my body. And I was like at work at my job, we had a long hallway from the office to the bathroom, and I would literally run to the bathroom when if I had to go. I would, and not because I was urgent. I just like I had so much energy. I'd be like, this is a long hallway, I'm just gonna run. And like I mentioned, I was a runner when I was in high school, so I just thought, what the heck, like maybe I'll see if I can give running another shot. Maybe I'll like it this time. Like maybe I'll be better at it now that I'm not, like sick all the time and having joint pain and like all this fatigue and stuff like that. So I started running again. Found it much, much more enjoyable, much easier. I recovered much faster after my runs. I just really, really ended up developing a very positive relationship with it. So I've been just running now for, I guess, 2.5 years. It's been a little bit on and off. Like I hadn't been like every single week running, a certain mileage or whatever. I let life kind of get in the way sometimes, and I prioritize other things sometimes. But, I've been I don't think there's been more than like a week or two in the past 2.5 years that I haven't at least gone for, a run. But after I realized that I was feeling really good, that running was feeling really easy, I maybe 6 months after I started running, decided to run a half marathon. I'd never run that distance before, so that's 13.1 miles, and in kilometers, I believe it's 21 kilometers, something like that, or 22. I think it's 22 kilometers. I had never done this before. Didn't know how to train for it. Just kind of, I was like, I'll just wing it. We'll see what happens. I ran pretty good, about 5 minutes faster than I thought I would. And then from there, I felt awesome. Like people were like, wow, that's a really good time for not training that much. So I just said, well, maybe I'll run a marathon then. So that was in 2023. I had been carnivore for just over a year. And I thought I would run a marathon in the spring. And then what happened was I got injured. um, so I had to put off that marathon to, the spring of 2024. And so I did that. I kept running and kind of training, and then I got injured again. And it actually turned out to be not anything that I was doing wrong. My hips are twisted weird because I have a TMJ disorder in my jaw. And when your jaw is misaligned, it misaligns your hips. And so my hip misalignment was causing injury. And I was able to address that with some physical therapy, which I still have to do exercises before I run every time, which is a little bit frustrating, but I actually have Invisalign right now to try to fix my jaw so that it stops happening. Because it'd be really nice to not have to do the physical therapy. But anyway, fast forward to this past summer, I finally got myself straightened out, all my injuries good, and I set the date for October 26th. I ran a marathon. And so I started this whole training plan with all the workouts like already scheduled for me. So all I had to do was just look at my app on my phone, and it told me what I was doing. So I've just spent the last 4 months running, about 45-ish miles a week. So I clocked around 160 miles a month, which is actually fairly low for marathon training, but I don't have time because I work full time also. So I just did what I could. I only skipped, 1 or 2 workouts here and there, just, it happens. But yeah, so I ended up going into this marathon feeling really good. I ended up running in 3 hours, 38 minutes, and 59 seconds. I got just under the wire there. Which is pretty good for a first marathon. About a quarter of all marathoners run under 4 hours. So I'm in a, pretty big minority there. I would like to run under 3 hours and 30 minutes. That's only 4% of female marathoners. So I'm not too far off. My goal time was about 3:33. And I missed that mostly because my feet started to hurt. The rest of me felt great though. And I think that that's in large part because of carnivore. And I could definitely talk a little bit about like kind of how the race went, what I did for it. Cause I
Yeah,
think,
please. Like, I'm also interested in like, was it fasted or,
yeah,
um, did you have stakes strapped to your legs for the pace? Or?
no. So I don't, most of my training, I was doing 1 meal a day, probably for, actually not most of it, for about half of it, I was doing 1 meal a day, because I just have never really felt super great running when I have eaten that day. I just feel better when I'm kind of emptier. Unfortunately, what happened there is that I just could not eat enough in one sitting. And I can eat a lot in one sitting, but I could not eat enough for how much I was working out. So I did start eating breakfast about halfway through the training period. So that would have been, I don't know, around like late August, I started eating breakfast, not like a huge breakfast, but just enough that I was getting those extra calories. And then when I ran, I never brought water with me when I was running, even when it was, 40 degrees Celsius outside and 100% humidity. I just kind of pushed through. I always had electrolytes with me. I had these chew tabs, that they do have 1 gram of sugar in them. I have to own that right up front. They do have a little bit of sugar in them. However, most marathoners eat like 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates during their race. I had 5, so I don't think that really factors in. If it ever left my stomach at all, I don't think that it really did much of anything the sugar. But anyway, so I only ran with electrolytes. When I raced last week, I did not. Let's see, what did I do? I ate around noontime the day before. And the race started at 7:30 in the morning, so I was like 20-ish hours fasted. Which for me, that's kind of the start of my sweet spot for like an everyday run. I usually like to race when I did my half marathons. I was 36 hours fasted, and that's kind of my really happy place for racing. However, I tried a 36-hour fast a couple weekends before the race, right before an 18-mile run, and I did not feel good during that run. I actually had to cut it a little bit short, go home, eat, wait like 6 hours, and like finish my mileage later in the day because I did not feel good at all. And I'm really glad I did that. I was upset at the time that I that I like kind of wrecked this run because the 18-mile run was supposed to be the longest run that I had done so far, and I kind of messed that up. But I'm glad that I tested the fasting before I did it, before running for 26 miles. So yeah, no, I was not 36 hours fasted, but I was about 20 hours fasted. And yeah, the only thing I had with me was just a pack of those Chew Tab electrolytes. So every few miles, I would just throw one in my mouth. And I was taking water at the aid stations every other mile. After about 10 miles, I was taking water, like 2 sips of water every aid station. So yeah, it was essentially, I guess, fasted because it was more than 16 hours I was fasted, and then no fuel during the race, just the electrolytes. And I felt really good. It was just my feet were hurting, and I think if my feet had not been hurting, I would have run quite a bit faster. But that was not a
Wow.
yeah, that's not a carnivore thing. That's just you got to spend time on your feet for your muscles to like really adjust to that impact over long
Mm,
periods of time. And like I said, I messed up my 18-mile run, so my feet did not have that conditioning, I guess. So they started to give out around 14 miles in. So,
right.
so.
Um, did anyone else notice that you were kind of doing this a bit differently? Like, was anyone aware that you weren't slamming the carbs beforehand?
No, I mean, I don't think so. It was not a huge race. There were only 400 runners. So I actually ended up kind of by myself for most of the race. I ran with one guy for like 5 or 6 miles or something like that, and we chatted a little bit, but there was nothing like interesting said. So no, I mean, I noticed other people were taking their gels and taking the electrolytes at the aid station and stuff like that. But really, it was a pretty strung out race. I spent a lot of it just running alone, maybe looking at somebody's back like a couple hundred feet ahead of me, but that was it. So no, I don't think anybody would have noticed, but I knew. So
And so, having done this, does this kind of motivate you to keep going?
oh yeah, absolutely. So I missed my goal time. Like I said, I wanted to run a 3:33, and I ran a 3:39 basically. And I think that, uh, like I said, I think if my feet hadn't been hurting me so badly, I would have definitely been much closer. My half split was 1:44 like 10 or something like that. So if I had been able to keep the pace that I had in the first half, which I believe I would have been able to if my feet hadn't like given up, I actually would have run a sub 3:30, potentially. So because I think my pace was, I'm sorry that this is in miles, but 7:58 minute mile was my split for the first half marathon. Yeah, so crossing the finish line, and I was happy with my time. It was a very, very strong showing for somebody's first marathon, and I had been pretty inconsistent with my running because of all the injuries and setbacks that I'd had prior to starting the actual 4-month training period. In July, I ran more mileage just in that 1 month that I ran than I ran in the 4 months prior. So like there was a huge volume increase. It was very sudden, like, and my body handled it like a champ. Most people, if they were to quadruple their mileage like that, all of a sudden that would like wreck their bodies. But I think because just I sleep really well and I really take care of myself and the diet stuff, like I really think just recovery was pretty easy. And yeah, so I'm happy with the time. I'm definitely looking forward to doing another one. I'm going to continue running. There's not going to be any more inconsistency happening from here on out. There's no injuries to, well, knock on wood, but there's no injuries for me to be sorting out now. So my plan is to run another one next fall. And in the meantime, just keep the mileage consistent, get in the gym, and like, see what I can do a year from now. I have a, crack pipe dream of someday running sub 3 hours, which is insane for women. Like less than 1% of women can do that. But I would love to go for it someday. So yeah, I definitely have some big plans on the horizon. But for now, I just want to see what happens if I just put in another year of just consistent work. So
That's fantastic.
mm-hmm.
And so now, just on a normal day-to-day basis,
Mm-hmm.
are you still eating like 4.5 pounds of beef a day?
Oh no, that only lasted for a couple months when I think my body, because that was in the very beginning. That was in the first 6 months of being carnivore, and like I'm over 3 years now. But yeah, I think what happened was, I had a lot of the surface work initial healing happened in the first couple months, and then I think my I think what happens is your body kind of realizes that it's been consistently receiving kind of what it needs for a prolonged period. So now it's going to go into like the deep, deep healing. I think that's what happened because I can't explain how I could possibly eat 4.5 pounds of beef a day because I cannot do that anymore. Even some of my runs, I burn, 1,000, 1,200 calories on some of these runs. I still can't eat 4 pounds of meat anymore. Like, no way.
Yeah. So what is your OMAD now?
I'm still kind of eating breakfast, just because I got used to it, but not every day. I didn't eat breakfast today, so sometimes OMAD, sometimes TMAD. I guess TMAD and TMAD 2 and 3, but 2 meals a day, and
Right.
never three. Yeah, I never eat 3 meals.
Right. And are you eating steaks or it's like ground beef or
It's a mix. It's been a lot of picanha lately, just because it's very fatty, and that's super helpful when I'm running. If I do eat ground beef, I try to get like the 75/25 if I can find it, just to make, and like I cook it in the pan, not on the grill, so that I can keep as much of the fat as possible. And I add butter, and like it's really all about the fat, right? The protein's really important too, but when you're running a lot and you're drawing on your fat as energy, you really need to get it down your neck. And I've been eating a lot of eggs too, so. I guess the standard meal I've been eating for the last couple months is like breakfast would be ground beef with like a fried egg and butter. And then dinner would be usually a picanha with fried eggs and butter. And since I actually stopped dairy and I stopped coffee during the training block because both of those things don't really agree with me too much. Coffee seems to, I don't know, maybe the acidity kind of upsets my stomach. And dairy just inflames me if I have it consistently. So I gave up both of those things, and my mom actually made me a carnivore cheesecake for marathon day, which I think it's steak and butter gal, maybe I think it's her recipe. So it's totally carnivore, but it's a lot of dairy. It's like 100% dairy. And so I told her, I was like, when I finish this marathon, I have not had coffee. I have not had dairy in like 4 months. All I want when I cross that finish line is to just like stick my face in a cheesecake. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't stick my face in it, but she brought this cheesecake, and about after I was able to walk again, because my electrolytes got pretty low at the end, I had to chug a ton of salt water. But after I was able to walk again, we went back to my car and I ate the cheesecake right out of the pan. It was great.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you when you think of what you've overcome that you had at such a young age,
hmm
your mum must be pretty happy about the results that you've had.
Yeah, she's pretty happy. She said she's pretty proud of me for, especially just putting all the hard work in that I've done the last, half of the year. And, proud of me that I've, become such a different, healthier, better, happier person. I think I'm a better, more present person in my relationships. I think I'm like a better sibling, a better daughter, a better coworker. Like I think just, and the running definitely has helped too. I get a little weird when I don't exercise. I've noticed I just get very restless and kind of pent up. So between, the diet sort of leveling me out, helping with all my health problems, like I'm not spending all my time stressing about my health or like my sleep or whatever. yeah, I've definitely been able to like make some pretty big changes, and my family's definitely proud of me, which is nice. So,
Yeah. So, regarding the social anxiety portion of it,
hmm
would in the kind of pre-carnivore times, would you have been able to do this kind of interview?
oh, definitely not. No, no. A lot of my anxiety was sort of remediated by working with the public. Actually, when I was in university, so I was able, because I used to like, I couldn't really make eye contact with people if I got any sort of sense that I was being like judged or that something unpleasant might come. I would just like freeze up, and I would like fidget with things. So like I remember when I was in the hospital program, at one point we had to do like a therapy session with my parents, and that was very, very stressful for me, and I basically like went mute. I couldn't even speak because I was so anxious. So yeah, I definitely could not have done an interview. I got to a point in my early 20s where I could kind of converse with strangers. I would never have wanted to be on camera. I wouldn't have. I still couldn't make phone calls in my early 20s. Actually, I was still very phobic of that. I still don't like making phone calls, but I can do it now. But yeah, any situation where it was kind of unscripted and I was expected to kind of talk off the top of my head, never would have done it. I wouldn't say that I love doing it still, but it's definitely not something that would make me like go into a panic the way that it would have, 10 years ago. So,
Wow. And when you think about these kind of things, I think carnivore is more necessary than ever when you consider like kids in junior high school are probably suffering from this kind of thing much more than they ever have.
oh, for sure. I think, and I don't know exactly what food was triggering all my problems. Like I ate a lot of bread, but my mom made it, so I don't know. I know we taught. She would like source the wheat as best she could. Like she would buy wheat berries from like a local farm and grind the wheat herself. And so I don't know, because I know a lot of people who have problems with gluten. It's actually the glyphosate that they use in the processing of the wheat, and not necessarily the wheat itself. But we also have this, GMO, very hybridized industrial wheat that could also be causing problems. Like I don't know what was causing my problems. I'm sure seed oils played a role. As much as we tried to avoid them, can't avoid them everywhere unless you're really, really, really careful. And I don't think we were that knowledgeable about it, back when I was in high school. But they're everywhere. Seed oils and all the GMO crops and just everything, high fructose corn syrup even still. And like, I haven't had, a soda since I was probably 10. And it's weird to me to think that other people just like drink stuff like that. But it's definitely still a problem. I haven't had fast food since I was 10. And I forget that people still do that, but people definitely still like go to McDonald's, they go to Burger King or wherever they go, and they get the sodas and the seed oil filled, French fries and stuff like that. I'm sure that it's just wreaking havoc on people's health, and that's not even talking about all of the chemicals that leach into the water and the traces of SSRIs and birth control in the public water supply, and who knows what that's doing to us. So,
Yeah, you remind me of that meme that sometimes goes around with a picture of like, McDonald's and a Starbucks Frappuccino and pizzas and all this kind of thing on the meme, and it's called the "Why Do I Feel So Bad" starter pack.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, we don't educate people like, and it's probably not, I'm in the US, so if, I my perspective is very like about what happens in the US, but I think it's really starting to creep into places in Europe too, and other countries around the world, where it's just we're not educating people on food. Like I know up in Canada, they're very fat phobic. They really fully believe that fat makes you fat. And so my spouse is Canadian, so I go up there a lot, and when we go to the grocery store, because I only eat meat, I can't, we don't really go to restaurants, so we do a lot of the cooking at home, and it's like impossible to find fatty meat up there unless you go to like a specialty butcher. And then we went to Costco once to buy like strip loin to butcher ourselves because it's cheaper. And I went up to the window and I asked, because they didn't have any at the counter or at the in the aisle, and so the butcher like went back to cut it for me, and I told her like leave as much fat on it as you can, and she was like horrified. This woman, she was like, "What do you mean you want all the fat on it? Like that's disgusting. Like why would you do that?" Um, and like I guess yeah, you're like paying extra for like just fat or whatever because you're paying like the price of the steak, and then like you're getting more of the weight as fat, but like that's the part that I need, and yeah, up in Canada, they're terrible about it. We're pretty bad about it here too, but it's a little bit easier. I think there's more choice, but like you can't get 80/20 ground beef in Canada, like hardly anywhere. There's like lean and extra lean, and that's it.
That sounds kind of like what I remember in Australia, right? And
Yeah,
even when you could find like fatty ground beef, for example, it was on the lower shelf that everyone was ignoring,
yeah, I was like
like
hiding. Yeah.
yeah.
And I actually, when I very first started doing carnivore, I was using Butcher Box to get my meat because the bulk is a little bit cheaper. And at the time, I didn't have the finances to commit to like buying a cow like in bulk from a farm here, which is what I do now. But at the time, I was buying from Butcher Box, and they source all of their beef from Australia. And I was noticing that the meat was very lean, and that's so I looked into it. They're very strict about grass fed in Australia, but they're also very fat phobic, and they do not want the fat on the meat, and so that was part of the reason why I stopped using Butcher Box.
It's interesting in Japan. Um, when you go to the supermarket, typically beef wise, it's coming from America, Australia, or it's local.
Huh.
And you look at the difference between the Japanese beef and the Australian beef. The Australian beef is basically just red, and the Japanese beef, it's like marbled, or it's got a fat on the outside or something like that. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Quite
There's
different.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like Japan still respects that the fat is what makes the food taste good. At least, like my understanding of a lot of the Asian cultures is less that like oh the fat's really good for you, although maybe in the older generations, but just more that the fat is what makes the soup taste really good, or it's what makes the dish flavorful. So they're like, who cares? It
Yeah,
tastes
well,
good.
certainly in Japan, it's basically like, yeah, the fat is what makes it taste good,
Hmm.
and this is our culture. And I think that's one of the great things about Japan is
Mm.
like the push for changes with diet and whatever. It has a bit of an impact, but not that much because there's always that cultural resistance. It's like, no, you're not bringing your low fat garbage in here, kind of thing.
I think that's great for the Japanese. Honestly, it'll keep them healthy. That's good.
Mm,
I support that.
yeah. So if a friend came to you and said, "Okay, Allison, tell me what to do. How do I go carnivore?" Would you suggest they transition in or just rip the band-aid off and go cold turkey?
Um, I think that really depends on the person, and their personality. I'm a very like all or nothing kind of gal. Like I said, I didn't even do any research. I just heard, oh, like Michaela Peterson did this and it fixed her, so I'm gonna do it. Actually, I ended up making a lot of mistakes in the first like month or so. I also didn't know how to cook red meat, so that was like a whole adventure in learning. But now I am the wielder of the golden spatula because I'm the best grill master I know. Um, they always make me cook at family events because I'm the only one who like speaks to the steak or something. I don't know, but anyway, when I first started, there was a lot of under eating that was happening just because I didn't know any better. There was a lot of learning curve with the cooking and stuff like that. I think, but I don't think that I would have done well trying to transition into it slowly because I'm, like I said, I'm very all or nothing. I definitely was sugar addicted as well, and I think for myself, keeping that like IV drip of carb in my diet as I tried to transition, I think that would have made it impossible for me to do it. I think I really just had to cold turkey and go right in. And I have some other friends who are like that. I do have one of my best friends overheard me talking about it. We had been coworkers at the time, and she was like super curious because she had like all the same health problems as me, but like way worse. And she also just dove straight in, no transition period, cold turkey. She was able to like quit all her medications after a couple months. She took like 2 years to get off her SSRIs, but for the most part, she was able to just like come off a bunch of meds. And she did the same thing, just cold turkey, rip the band-aid off. You know, she had me to ask questions of so that she didn't make as many mistakes as I made, which was helpful for her. But then I have other friends who no, like I have a current coworker who's transitioning into carnivore. He's been doing it for like 4 months now. And he's disciplined, so it works well for him. Like he'll, you know, once a week or twice a week, he'll have, you know, a non-carnivore meal, but he's mostly kind of working his way towards it, and he's loving how it's feeling. He's not getting those like transition symptoms that you would get, you know, if you really just went all in on it all at once. I don't know if he'll ever just take that final plunge and become fully carnivore, but he's mostly carnivore now, which is better than, you know, what it was before. So yeah, I would say like it really just depends on the person, and I think you have to kind of know, like you have to know yourself enough to know whether or not you're able to moderate things like sugar. And a lot of people don't want to have that conversation with themselves because sugar is definitely an addictive substance, and people can't really be honest with themselves about it. So yeah, it just, you know, I've had different people with different approaches. So
Yeah. So Allison, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any way of catching you on social media or any other way of getting in contact?
um, not really. I think I had made a YouTube channel. It has no videos on it. I haven't done anything with it. I've really pulled off of social media, especially when I was training for this marathon, because I just didn't have time, and I didn't have like mental space for social media. And I've actually really liked not being online. It's given me a lot of time to like have other hobbies and spend more time kind of like with people in real life. So I would say like no, I'm not really online. I don't think I really plan to be online, but I will be lurking in the comments section of this video to answer any questions that people have just for like a day or two. But yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Well, thank you for coming
Mhm.
back on and letting us know how things are going. I really
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on again. It's been a pleasure.